sheep stands out from the flock at her home in Cody's, New Brunswick. She's just one of several animals who now call Lily's Place Animal Sanctuary home. And it's a miracle that Nancy is even alive. Less than a year ago, she was on a farm without a protected barn over a harsh winter and lost one of her legs. So when she moved to Lily's Place, she needed a new lease on life. That's when UNB researchers stepped up in order to give her a prosthetic leg. She got one over the summer, but the fit wasn't quite right, so they recently gave her a new and improved version. I drove to Lily's Place recently to meet Nancy, the sheep, and to check out her new prosthetic, and to meet Nancy's owners, Jamie Sabat and Tim Clancy, who took me for a tour of the barn.
Okay, so that's Sid, first rescue. Nancy's over there with her new prosthetic. Junebug, the smallest one in the barn. She's pretty skittish. Over here we have Gracie, so she's a half hare sheep, half wool, so that's why she looks a little different. And then we have Annie, she's the leader. And then Punky, the one with the freckles.
Punky?
Punky Brewster.
And what's that sound we're hearing?
Oh, that's Milo. Milo's a call duck, and she's about 2 pounds. And they came in because they were given as a Mother's Day gift to someone in the city. So you can imagine neighbors would not be happy with Milo.
A call duck?
Yeah, come have a look.
What is that?
So Tim, you're good at telling what call ducks are. It's a breed of duck.
Yeah, so call ducks were originally bred for hunting purposes. So they took wild ducks, bred them down in size to use as decoys, and selectively bred them to be noisy, as you can tell.
To call other ducks.
Yes.
And you have other animals here too, right? Not just the sheep and the duckies?
Yeah, there's chickens in here, staying warm right now. So there's hens in there, and then roosters at the house, and goats in the goat house. So we would have walked by it when we came into the barn.
So Nancy is standing right in front of us, and she's very recognizable because she has a prosthetic leg.
Mm-hmm. That's her new prosthetic. So it was donated, created and donated by people at the Upper Limb Clinic through the University of New Brunswick. So that's also the Institute of Biomedical Engineering. So 3 researchers came out, cast her leg, and made her a prosthetic that works well for her. So can bend and move just like she would if she had her leg.
And she's just walked right up to us, very friendly. How would you describe her personality?
Oh, well, we have a saying that I can't say on air, but basically she's a no worries Nancy. So when she got here, all the sheep were lined up, all puffed up, like, who's this newbie? And she walked right through them, like, didn't care. Couldn't care less. Yeah, so, yeah, she has no worries now that she's here.
What's her story?
So Nancy's story is a pretty sad one, actually. So she was with another sheep who was older and had passed away. And she had broken her leg and received no medical care. And so the bottom of her foot fell off. And she's lucky to be alive because infection could have set in and taken her, not just her leg. So she's a very fortunate case. So then she came into Cedar Row Farm Sanctuary in Ontario, and they knew that she needed a really special place to go. So not a big flock, right? Someone who could take care of her and put her leg on and off every day. And so she came here.
She seems to really have slipped into this prosthetic like it was just natural. Like, she's walking so well with it. Instead of a hoof, it's kind of a little slider. I don't know, how would you describe that little thing?
It kind of looks like a little elf shoe a little bit, I guess. Yeah, her stump just sits in there, and then because there's movable parts above, she can bend it like a joint and move freely. So I know you're not a designer of prosthetics, but what's your understanding about how the UNB team approached this and built this? Oh, that's a good question. Well, one of them is an occupational therapist, and so she was able to kind of ask us a lot of questions about Nancy's daily life and how she moved and what she'd need to be comfortable, like how did they get up and down and, that sort of thing. So And then they looked at her old one, which had no joints. It was straight, and her stump kept popping out of the back. And so they knew that was a problem, and they wanted to encase the full stump. So they took that approach, and then they thought, okay, we're going to try a joint, see if that works. It may not, and thankfully it has. So.
Wow. Yeah, because she had a previous prosthetic over the summer. CBC covered that story. And so that was the same group of researchers that gave her that prosthetic?
No, that one was built in Ontario. And typically it would be a really good design. It's, pretty standard for farm animals. But yeah, it wasn't working for Nancy, unfortunately. And it kind of takes some time to know if a prosthetic is going to work because they're not used to moving with one anymore, right? So you could see her shoulders are a bit down on the one side because she needs to build up the muscle.
How long did it take the team at UNB to kind of develop this?
A month?
Yeah, close to a month.
Maybe.
Have they ever done this before for an animal?
Never a sheep. And I don't know if they've done other animals.
And how much do you reckon it costs to do something like this?
Well, Nancy's first prosthetic in Ontario was over $2,000.
And was that something you guys had to pay for?
That was something that Cedar Road Farm Sanctuary paid for.
And then this one, how did that work?
That one was donated. Time to create it, materials, everything.
What did they say about why they did that? Why they donated their time and resources?
Well, one of their old colleagues was at our open house and noticed that Nancy's prosthetic wasn't working quite well, right? And so he said, let me reach out to them, my former colleagues, and see if they want to help. And they did.
And I think for them being on the research side as well, it was something new, something different, and an opportunity for them to learn something new also.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
How do you think it affects Nancy's life to have this prosthetic limb?
Well, she's a lot more mobile, and she's a lady who knows what she wants and knows where she wants to go, and this gives her the freedom to do that.
We joke and say that our sheep are kind of like couch potatoes because if it's inclement weather or there's a lot of bugs outside, they're pretty much staying in the barn, but not Nancy. Whether it's raining, snowing, bugs, anything, she just wants to be outside, so she'll be out there grazing while the others are inside resting. So
yeah, she's the active one of the sheep.
Yeah. What would you like people to understand about sheep behavior and personality maybe that people might not know about?
Yeah, well, I think, Sid was the first sheep we ever cared for when he came in. And one of the things we were most surprised about was he reminds me of golden retrievers. He's just a big, friendly guy who wants to be with his people. And they all have different personalities, but they're very sweet, very docile.
we spend a few hours out here in the morning, usually check-ins in the afternoon, a couple hours at night. So we get to spend a lot of time with them. And in doing so, in a small flock where you can spend a lot of time with each animal or observing each animal, you really start to see their personalities shine through.
And I noticed the volunteers all pick up on somebody different, depending on what their personalities are. Right?
Really?
Yeah, so we have a Johnny's sponsor, kind of likes that he's a little bit of a rebel and a little, naughty. And then another volunteer we have, a nurse, she loves Punky because she's just reserved, quiet,
Who do you relate with?
Nancy. Yeah, I'm a bit of a firecracker at times, and so I like Nancy.
How about you, Tim?
I'm probably Sid, yeah.
Yeah? Yeah, Sid is standing right in front of us now, just really enjoying that we're buttering him up, I think. There was a story recently about New Brunswick SPCA having to deal with a lot more cases of abandoned animals or neglected animals, and they were just raising awareness about the issue. So I'm curious, is that something, when you hear that news, does that surprise you that those numbers are up this year?
That doesn't surprise us. A lot of the requests we get is due to financial situations, whether it's like another person has to go back to work or change jobs. Like for the hens that came in just recently, their caretaker was going back to long haul trucking, so couldn't take care of them.
Well, we've been asked to take, off the top of my head, about 150 animals this year alone. Of course, we can't take them all due to budgetary constraints, but I think that just goes to show how many animals there are out there in need of a home since the start of COVID, there has been an increase in the amount of people looking to rehome farm animals. Perhaps they got into it thinking that they wanted to be self-sufficient and maybe realized it wasn't what they thought, or it's too much work, or...
So 150 requests roughly for this year. How does that compare to like the year previous, for example?
At least double.
And would you say that most of the reasons are due to affordability?
At least
Financial
40 of those were rabbits, and each of those cases was breeders who were trying to get out of breeding rabbits because nobody is buying their rabbits now. I think there's more awareness about adopting from SPCAs and rescues and that sort of thing. And then I think the finances, people are working a lot and don't have the time or money.
Well, why do you guys do this line of work? Why are you so passionate about this?
Well, I was always an animal lover, and my career path took me into the SPCA in Ontario. And while I was there, I realized how few resources there are for farm animals. So when there was a case, there often was, hobby farms, that sort of thing that could step up, but that was still limited. Left my job at the SPCA due to compassion fatigue. As soon as we moved to the country, we rescued hens. And then that was that.
You just said something called compassion fatigue. What do you mean by that?
It's typically a term used in animal care when you see a lot of horrible things and have very few resources to do anything about it, and it deteriorates your mental health. I think that's why we took a sanctuary model rather than a straight rescue model. So we can create a safe space and care for individuals without needing to be on call 24/7. Because this alone means we are taking in injured animals, older animals. So there is a lot of passing, a lot of grief, a lot of death. So we have to take care of our mental health, and thankfully we have a board that's very supportive and a lot of volunteers that help us out.
For me, it started with dogs. We always had dogs growing up. And then when I became introduced to the farm sanctuary world, some things just started to click for me. I thought, there really isn't a lot of difference between a dog and a sheep, for example. So they're individuals. They all have a personality, and I think they all deserve the same amount of respect. And yeah, I just... Like Jamie said, we saw a need, and we're both, I think, softies and kind of fighting for justice type people, and these animals need us. And for me, it's rewarding, it's fulfilling, and at the end of the day, we're tired, we put in long hours, we both work full-time jobs outside of the sanctuary, but it's more rewarding than doing nothing, that's for sure.
That's Tim Clancy and Jamie Sabot. They are the owners of Lily's Place Animal Sanctuary in Cody's near Cambridge Narrows. 25 minutes now.